Even though this video is a little bit out of my league here, I'm putting out, but like in the aspect of like because I'm not a woman, but I'd like to talk about this, and it's about the GOP banning abortions and how they want to force women to live in the past. Um, Basically, for some time, Arizona has been near the front of the pack of the Republican-controlled states that have been itching to ban abortion throughout the whole state. Now, Governor Greg Douchebag didn't wait for the June overturn of Roe v. Wade, or even for the leak of the Dobbs v. Jackson women's health ruling in May. Merely anticipating such a decision was enough for the Republican governor to sign a 15-week abortion ban in March. But even that didn't go far enough for the state's Republican Attorney General Mark Brnovich, or the Pima County Superior Court Judge Kelly Johnson, a douchebag appointee. Now on Friday, Johnson had upheld Brnovich's request to reinstate a draconian abortion ban that dates back to 1864. That was 48 years before Arizona became a state and the women got the right to vote there, and 56 years before women's suffrage was nationalized in the 19th Amendment. Under this law, which was enacted in the Arizona Territory shortly after the Union had reconquered it from the Confederacy, and to truncate the history a little, doctors or anyone else convicted of helping a woman abort a pregnancy would face up to 5 years in prison if they did this. Um, Now, yesterday's ruling in Arizona is dangerous, and it will set Arizona women back more than a century. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said in a statement on Saturday, which is more or less the goal, honestly. Now, Heather Cox Richardson, who's an historian at Boston College, and she specializes in the 19th century American history, had posted an article online over the weekend, put in Arizona's ban in context by noting what other statutes were passed by the territorial legislator at the same time. Basically. Along with banning abortion, the legislature set the age of sexual consent at 10 years old, and they also passed a law stating that no black or mulatto or Indian, Mongolian, or Asiatic shall be permitted to testify in court against any white person, and validating any marriages between a white person and a black person. When feminists and abortion right advocates say that Republicans intend to turn back the clock to the 19th century, they really aren't fucking exaggerating. This intention has never been far below the surface. In his concurring opinion in the Dobbs case, the Justice Clarence Thomas argued, who's another fucking idiot, argued that the Supreme Court should consider overturning various decisions going back to the 1960s and before that legalized contraception, the rights of adults to have consensual sex in private, and the right to same-sex marriage. He did not mention the court's decision that legalized interracial marriage, but he is known to have objected to that in the past, at least before he married a fucking white woman. This this sort of all-out attack wouldn't stop with rolling back rights gained back in the 20th century. um, Repealing Roe and other decisions like it should also be understood as a rejection of the Reconstruction Amendments that were passed between the years of 1865 and 1870. A New York University law professor Peggy Cooper Davis explained in a Washington Post article that the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment was designed to extend to all people the right to have an autonomous life choices. I'm not sure I said that right, but whatever. Taking away privacy rights is about erasing the plain meaning of these amendments. Now, the Republicans often like to fashion themselves as feminists in the style of the suffragists, mostly in order it rejects the 20th century feminism that fought for reproductive rights, and their contempt for the goals or even of even the first wave of feminism has been peeking out more and more often. Basically, the I basically Marjorie Trader Green, fucking she's a fucking nut and a half, and she basically goes on to say that women are the weaker sex, and she said this in a speech back in April where she argued that women's inferiority was God given since we came from Adam's rib. I don't know about all that, but Green has hit this weaker sex talking point more than once, and should not be written off as fringe. Um, Sam Brody had reported for the Daily Beast Green's endorsement was actively courted in Republican primaries, given her popularity among much of the base and what she brings to a campaign. She doesn't really bring anything. As Alex Shepard writes in The New Republic, formerly marginal figures like Green are arguably more central to the party than ever before. It was reported last week that John Gibbs, who was a Trump-endorsed Republican running for Congress in Michigan, once ran a one-man think tank that called for the repeal of a woman's right to vote. Women, he wrote, do not possess the characteristics necessary to govern because they cannot think logically about broad and abstract ideals. Now, Gibbs has claimed to distance himself from these writings of the 2000s, claiming that it was satire and an attempt to draw attention to the hypocrisy of some modern-day women feminists. But if you actually read what he posted at the time, those excuses seems like fucking lies. His essays are straightforward rebuttals to a feminist claim that women have been historically oppressed, with no evident attempt at humor, satire, and no references to supposed feminist hypocrisy. Now, honestly, his take was simple and clear. Feminists claim women are equal, but Gibbs disagreed. It's tempting to view Gibbs as a lone weirdo who slipped through the GOP cracks. He won his primary mostly because the incumbent Representative Peter Meijer had voted to impeach Trump over the January 6th Klan attack, while Gibbs has described the insurrectionists now in custody as prisoners, as political prisoners, even though they're not political prisoners. But that kind of radical sexism is nowhere near as fringe as it used to be in the Republican Party. Gibbs' arguments against women voting, in fact, sound a lot like the infamous 2009 essay by tech billionaire Peter Thiel, arguing that women's suffrage destroyed democracy. Since 1920, the vast increase in welfare beneficiaries and the extension of the franchise to women, two constituencies that are not notoriously tough for libertarians, have rendered the notion of capitalist democracy into an oxymoron. After the fact, Thiel tried to claim that he was somehow not arguing against voting rights for women, but once again, reading his actual words renders this unpersuasive. Since much of his essay is dedicated to a fantasy about starting new nations in spaces where the supposed mistake cannot be made again. Thiel spent the early parts of this election cycle aggressively funding candidates to remake the GOP in his fucking image, with very little success. He was able to make Blake Masters the Republican Senate nominee in Arizona, where he's been running on lightly laundered ideas from the white nationalist fringe. Masters has previously described legal abortion as demonic, even if he's disingenuously trying to cover that up now, and backed a nationwide personhood law that would almost certainly be used to ban not just abortion, but most forms of birth control. This also financed the GOP primary campaign of Hillbilly Elegy. Author J.D. Vance in Ohio said, Vance has publicly argued against divorce even in cases of domestic violence. When confronted by Vice News about this view, Vance falsely claimed that domestic violence has skyrocketed in recent years, implying that the sexual revolution is to blame. While in reality, there was a relatively minor uptick during the pandemic, domestic violence rates have plummeted over the past few decades, as both law and custom have made it substantially easier for women to leave abusive men. The Arizona decision is right in line with other Republican abortion ban proposals and laws that take a dim view of basically the obstetric care. If I said that right, I don't know. And it has improved greatly since the era when doctors who deliver babies refused to even wash their hands. In states where abortion has been banned, doctors are being forced to wait until miscarrying patients go septic before they're allowed to treat them. Patients are losing ovaries or enduring the hysterectomies because of abortion bans that also restrict many forms of the basic gynecological care. The senator Lady Graham, basically from South Carolina, has proposed a 15-week abortion ban that supposedly has exceptions for rape and incest. In reality, doctors would be required to forego surgical abortion with rape victims, instead inducing labor and then going through the sadistic force of attempting to revive a fetus that has no chance of surviving outside the womb. But taken all together, all this adds up to a level of misogyny and sadism reminiscent of 19th century doctors who argued it was unbiblical to offer pain relief to women during labor. Now, the past few years have seen a real surge in right-wing romanticization of the 18th and 19th centuries. Justice Samuel Alito Dobbs' opinion not only holds out 19th century attitudes about the women's health care as the gold standard, but literally it cites a medieval witch burner as the moral authority on the issue. Alito had at one point belonged to an alumni group from Princeton that objected to admitting female students and argued that women should be required to notify their husbands to get an abortion, so perhaps this is no fucking surprise. But still, the revival of a law literally passed during the Civil War gives the game away. Republicans really and truly want to return women to the 19th century. Now women who support Republicans I don't see how you could even support a Republican, basically, because they basically want to take away your rights. So why the fuck would you want to vote Republican? Um, also, if you're a woman and you're a Republican, you should be fucking ashamed of yourself. But anyway, but if you like the video, give the video a like and subscribe to my channel, RBW King. If you want to you can give the video a like and subscribe to my channel, and sorry, fuck. So if you want to support my work even further, you can donate to my Patreon link, which you can find in the about section of YouTube. And for just a little, so a few bucks a month, your donation can help go a long way. And thanks for listening.